Thank you. Say, mashallah. Hope everybody's doing well. Sisters, if I can request you, as I had done in the first session, to please turn on your cameras. I know, you may not want to, but please, this is supposed to be an interactive class, so I will request thank you to those sisters who have done that. Also, a very, warm thank you to those sisters who submitted their homework, mashallah. It was just submitted a few like hours ago for most of the ones that I saw. And also, I was busy preparing for the class. I haven't got a chance to look at it properly. I will, inshallah, look at them. And inshallah, next week we can start off by somehow highlighting some of the submissions. MashaAllah, there were good homework assignments, research done about the lives of the Maraja. So yeah, inshallah, if there's no questions or comments, we can get started. Today we want to enter the discussion about Tahara. Just a little bit of a background before we enter our main discussion for today about wudu. So today, inshallah, we want to go through the main rules of wudu. What is the wajib method of performing wudu? The normal sequential tartibi method. There will be other discussions about wudu, definitely that will come up about the conditions of wudu, what do we do wudu for, and other types of wudu. But the main discussion about wudu we're gonna go into today. But first of all, just a little bit of an introduction. Again, at any time, you guys can feel free to ask questions. I don't know if there was anything that you felt was outstanding about ijtihad and taqlid. But as far as I'm aware, we covered what needed to be covered in that area, so I won't go back to it anymore. Um, as I was indicating, there are many different discussions in fiqh, and traditionally there's about 50 or so chapters that books of fiqh deal with. Two of the biggest that we're all familiar with, and this book that we're following, 50% almost of the book just deals with these two, is Tahara and Salat. These two subjects, two chapters encompass lots of discussions within them. Now, interesting thing to know is that some of those discussions are removed in this book that we are following. For example, all the discussions about death and the different rituals that need to be done when somebody dies, including how to bury them and how to do kafan and salatul mayyit and ghusl and all these other things, that's traditionally part of Kitab al-Tahara. Even Salat al-Mayyit, it ends up kind of, it's like a tangent within a discussion. So Tahara will talk about ghusl. One of the types of ghusl will be ghusl al-Mayyit. And then as a result, books of fiqh will go off and for, huge amounts, like pages and pages and pages, they'll talk about all the ahkam about dead people. Ahkam of Amwat. And in this book that we are following, the one that the picture of it was on the last slide, Darsnama Fiqh by Agha Fallah Zadeh, they've taken that out and put the discussion about death at the end of the entire book. But still, it starts normally with a discussion of Tahara. Tahara, in some ways, if you saw the notes that I shared for this lesson, it can be introduced as a prerequisite to prayer. And it is one of the prerequisites of prayer. And so, Tahara itself encompasses lots of discussions. It's also a huge chapter. We have discussions about Tahara min al hadath and min al khabath. These are good terms to know. I didn't put them on the slides here, but they're good terms to memorize. It's like the chapter on Tahara is divided into two. There are the discussions about what is najis and how to make them tahir. Again, lengthy discussions, all the different najasat, the ayanun najis. What are things that in their essence are najis? Dogs and pigs and blood and kafirs. And then how to make them tahir. How is it possible to make so that's the things that in their essence are najis, then things that can also become najis by touching something that is essentially najis, and then that kind of thing. How do you make it tahir? Again, lengthy discussions. Water, main discussion is about water. And then other types of tahara, earth can be mutahhir, other things, other types of mutahhirat, earth and sun. And then that's one discussion. That's all part of the tahara min al-khabath. So purity from external impurities or filth. And then there's another discussion altogether about tahara min al-hadath. This terminology is there in the notes, by the way. It's not on the slides, but the notes that I shared with you has this. Hadath refers to the more of like a spiritual state that you need to then perform an action, a ritual to come out of that spiritual state. Hadath al-asghar is when you've broken your wudu and you need to now perform wudu to come out of hadath al-asghar and to be in a state of tahara ready to pray, for example. Okay? Hadath al-akbar is when you need to perform ghusl. So again, all the rules to do with this. How do you perform wudu? How do you perform ghusl? Then there's tayammum as well. All the details, the conditions, the exceptions, the doubts that you might have, the different circumstances that come up, mustahabbat, wajibat. All of these would be another section of the discussion of tahara. So you can see how tahara becomes quite a long discussion. It's not as long as Salat. Salat is much longer, I think, but overall, Tahara is still a huge chapter. Okay, so no questions or comments. We'll enter the discussion about wudu. But our plan is also to kind of go with these discussions. So first, we're going to talk about wudu. It'll take us at least 2-3 lessons to go through wudu. Then we'll talk about, I think, ghusl, and then tayammum, and then things that are najis, things that are mutahhir. And also, there's a discussion about water, different types of water. In some ways, that's needed for wudu. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Like some of the discussions about different types of water would apply actually and be mentioned when talking about wudu. Like one of the conditions of wudu is that you need to use mutlaq water. We haven't even talked about water yet. When we come to that condition, we'll explain this term. So yeah, also there's one or two other discussions in Tahara, but overall these are the main discussions in the chapter of Tahara, and this will take us till the end of this class that we have scheduled, another 10 sessions or so. Okay. So if there's no questions or comments, we can start the wudu discussion. Wudu comprises of two things that you have to wash and two things that you have to wipe. It's kind of cool to think about that. The other two rituals that we're going to talk about to take ourselves out from hadath are going to be ghusl and tayammum. Ghusl is just all about washing. The word for washing is ghusl in Arabic. So ghusl is all about washing. Tayammum is all about wiping. You wipe your forehead, you wipe your hands. But wudu has a mix. We wash two of our body parts and we wipe two of our body parts. And that's the wajib part of wudu. All of these, there are mustahabbat that we'll talk about later. If we look at this verse of Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah very briefly tells us how wudu comprises of these four parts. Two things we gotta wipe and two things we gotta wash. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. O you who have faith, O you who believe, when you stand for prayer, before you pray, you gotta do wudu. How do you do this thing? فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق. Wash your face and your hands up to the elbows. I'm going to ask you guys a question here, but let's just finish the translation. So wash your faces and your hands up to the elbows, and then wipe your heads, برؤوسكم, wipe your heads and your feet, إلى الكعبين, your feet up to the ankle. Now, two questions that our Sunni brothers and sisters might ask us that, look, guys, this verse is very clearly saying wash your hands up to your elbows. So isn't it correct, therefore, to wash that water downwards going up to the elbow? You guys have any idea? I mean, there's a lot of different things we can say as Shia to respond to this. This is a very lengthy discussion that Shias and Sunnis debate about, and Shias really have a lot of evidence. But just from the Arabic, anybody have an idea of what we could say, how we could explain this to our Sunni brothers or defend our position? It seems to say what they are doing, ilal marafiqi, up to. Ila means the to in Arabic, and marafiq are your elbows. So it's saying wash your hands up to the elbow. Well, you guys are not expected to know this, but anybody want to take a guess? Anybody want to try? How would we, even aside from the Quran, how would we as Shias kind of try to defend our position here on how to do wudu? You guys can feel free to put a message in the chat, take a guess. No worries if you make a mistake. No big deal at all. No, nobody's. Sister Sarah, Bismillah.
Um, it's possible that it's just saying the amount. It's not talking about direction so much as from your hands up until your elbow. Like this is the area that we're referring to.
Exactly. This is something very normal in Arabic, where when you see a thing is called preposition, right? A harf, and the thing that comes after it, ila al-marafiq. What does ila al-marafiq go back to? It doesn't, we Shias would say, it doesn't go back to the washing. It's not talking about the direction of washing. It's talking about the hand. That the hand, what section of the hand? The hand up to the elbow. In any case, we Shia, we follow the Ahlul Bayt. This is what the Quran tells us to do. We have very clear ahadith about all of these things. And like I said, this is like a detailed discussion that Shias and Sunnis would go into, and we would probably give lots of other evidence that companions of the Prophet did it this way. And regardless, we follow Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq. We don't have any doubts about obvious things like this. But yeah, as Sister Sarah said, the simple Arabic explanation is that, yeah, ilal marafiq is just limiting the hand, not talking about the direction of washing. Another thing, this one I won't ask it as a question, I'll just kind of tell you, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ means obviously wipe your head. Sunnis and Shias alike, they wipe their heads. وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ. Here our Sunni brothers have a very complicated way of explaining this, that أَرْجُلَكُمْ goes back to the washing. That you wash your faces and your hands, wipe your head, and again wash your feet. But Allah didn't say wash your feet, He just said وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ. Again, we Shia, in addition to all of our historical evidence and debates with the Sunnis using history and hadith, we have a lot of things we can say based on Arabic grammar and this verse over here. That it is very wrong in Arabic grammar to make arjulakum go back to faghsilu. Okay, and on the other hand, there's a discussion, why does arjulakum have a fatha and not a kasra? There's discussions about Arabic grammar basically in this verse that Shias and Sunnis would kind of use to debate their position. Anyway, that was just a side point for your interest. Let's now go on. So there's three types of wudu. Today we're going to talk about the main one, tartibi. Okay, you could put a alif lam before every one of these. It just happens to have a alif lam on the first one. But basically, let me in fact fix it. I have it open in another computer. I'm just gonna see something. If I delete it in the other computer, does it change? No, it doesn't change. Okay. Tartibi is the main one that we're gonna talk about today, the normal sequential wudu that we normally do. Two other types. There is gonna be one called wudu jabira. This is a bit tricky, a bit complicated. It applies when you have a bandage. Like look at the guy on the side over here. He has a bandage. There are gonna be times the tricky part is figuring out if your responsibility is wudu jabira or tayammum when you have an injury. And we'll go through these rules. And if you're ever in doubt, you can always do both of them. But there are times where when you have a bandage on a part of wudu, you just wipe over. Instead of washing, you wash everything else normally. But when it comes to the bandage, you just wipe over that. And that's called wudu jabira. We'll talk about that next week, inshallah. There's another type of wudu as well, which there's not much to it, but again, we won't come to it this week. We'll talk about it next week, called wudu irtimasi, which you can just choose to do that. It's not like you only do it in certain circumstances. No, whenever you want, you can choose to do that, which is you immerse your entire head in water and you immerse your hands in water. Like I said, there's not much to it. I can just explain it right now, in fact, that, with the same conditions of wudu, where you need to make the water flow from the top of your forehead, we'll talk about all this, from the top of your face down to your chin, or from your elbow down to your fingertips. Okay, the same rules, the same amount, the same idea of direction. Instead of, putting water on your hand and making the water flow over the body part, you just immerse the entire thing underwater. And that's totally fine. That's valid. Okay? There's some differences amongst marajit, very subtle differences to do with some details that don't really apply. Like, for example, I'll just, since I mentioned this, I'll tell it to you. Some marajit say that you can put your whole hand in water and then with the niyat of wudu, you take it out. Okay, Ayatollah Sistani doesn't allow that, and some Marajit don't allow that. So, what Ayatollah Sistani and other Marajit say is that no, from the beginning, when you put the hand in water, when you put your forehead, as this picture of the boy doing it is doing, when as you're putting it in the water, you have to make the niyyah that I'm doing wudu and I'm dunking it in as my wudu. That's basically it. There's nothing more to it. That's wudu irtimasi. And so, today what we're going to mostly be talking about, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about will apply to wudu irtimasi as well. But what we're going to kind of look at it as wudu tartibi. So overall, these are three different types of wudu. But like I said, a lot of what we're going to discuss will apply to all the types. Okay. Um, some Sister Walia Fatima has a question that can you do it like that or does it have any conditions? Sister Walia Fatima, do you want to ask in a little bit more detail? Like, what do you mean? The conditions of wudu would apply to this irtimasi. So we're gonna there's gonna be different conditions of wudu that we'll talk about maybe next week about tartib and muwalat, the order of washing the face before the right hand before the left hand, the idea that you can't take a break in the middle of wudu, the idea that the water you're using needs to be not stolen water, needs to be, like I said, mutlaq water. You can't have najis body. All these different things, a lot of the conditions, all the conditions would apply to the different types of wudu as well. Yeah, so for irtimasi even, it's not like fundamentally different. It's just a different way of washing. Okay, right now, in fact, let me just explain something. That what do we mean when we say wash? What we mean by washing is making water reach a certain body part. Okay, so as opposed to wiping, wiping is like you're just passing a moist hand over it. But here you're putting so much water on your hand that even when you put your hand on your face, it's like you're washing, you're not wiping. Okay, so because you're making water reach there, now, when we say wudu tartibi versus wudu irtimasi, it's really just two different ways of making water reach that body part. Either you make water reach by your hand or you immerse your entire body part in water. Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys a question here. What does niyyah mean? This is something we will see again and again, that acts of worship in Islam are differentiated from other rules in that an act of worship needs to have a niyyah. This is the fact that we discuss it in ahkam causes confusion. So I want to ask you guys, what does it mean to have a niyyah? If I say that the first step to wudu is your niyyah, what exactly does that mean? Anybody want to help us out? Bismillah, sisters. Somebody put a message. A conscious intention of the act you are performing. Again, Sister Walia Fatima, like the intention of doing a certain act. Okay, fair enough. Even I put intention in the on the slide, translated it. Sister Iman Manik, you need to know what you are doing purposefully. That's very correct. That's very precise, in fact. And so, because Sister Iman said it so correctly, I won't ask you guys further. I'll just explain it now that, people get confused that, oh, I need to say something or I need to think something. I need to say I am doing wudu qurbatan ilallah. I am, or I need, it needs to run through my mind. I am doing wudu qurbatan ilallah. No, that's not the case. Murajat today, they all say that as Sister Iman just mentioned, as long as you know what you are doing, that is it. You have a niyyah. That you're not just, putting water on your face to cool down. You're not just putting water on your face to show off. No, you're actually, you know that I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, then that's fine. I have a niyyah. Somebody were to stop you and ask you, what are you doing? You know what you're doing. You're not heedless of what you're doing. And like I said, you're doing it for the sake of Allah, then that is sufficient. Okay, so sometimes, like I said, the fact that we talk about niyyah causes confusion. It's nothing confusing. It's something very kind of obvious and clear. Okay, the steps to wudu are gonna be these six things. I said earlier, I said two and two because hands and feet were just grouped together. So I said face and hands and then head and feet. But if we now open up hands into your right hand and then your left hand, and feet into your right foot and then your left foot, we now have six different things. Okay? For each one of these, although the hands and feet are going to be the same, so maybe it makes sense to just make four. But anyways, for each one of these, we're going to have a few different things we want to know. One is what is the amount that needs to be washed or wiped, and one of them is the direction. Sorry, no, the direction is yeah. So one of them is the amount, the direction. Another thing is the minimum width and the minimum length. Is there a minimum amount or not? Is there an expected amount of length and width that we need to be washing or wiping? So inshallah, that's basically all we need to talk about for the wajib portion of wudu, and then inshallah we can go further. Okay, so first let's get started with that inshallah. First of all, with our face, as you can see here in the picture, the wajib part is from where your hair ends. Okay, so if I were to take off my amama, my hair ends up here, like the end of my growth of hair, up until down to the bottom of my chin. Okay, that is the amount of the length of how much I need to wash. If somebody's hair is like different, let's say they have a receding hairline, they're going bald, okay? In that case, it's like what is for a normal person? Whatever the normal area that hair would start growing is, that's where you start washing all the way down to the bottom of your chin. You don't need to do your, what do you call it, like your upper neck or anything like that. No, just to the bottom of your chin, and that's enough. Okay? In terms of the width, it's the amount between your thumb and your middle finger. Again, if somebody has like, a very small hand, then they should do a little bit more because what for a normal person with that kind of face size, what is a normal distance from the middle finger to the thumb? That width, and like I said, the length from the beginning of your hair growth up until the bottom of your chin. Okay? When we talk about direction for Shias, like I was saying, and maybe even for Sunnis, but definitely for Shias, it's very important. The direction is something that is like a condition here. We need to be going downwards. If I make a mistake, like let's say my hand slips and goes upward, that's not a big deal. If I even throw water upwards on my face, that's not a big deal. But when I'm making the niyyah that now I'm washing this for wudu, it needs to be in a downward motion. Okay, that's the direction aspect is something important here. That's it for the face. For the hands, we have the amount is basically from your elbow down to your fingertips. Okay, so again, you can see a nice picture here. From your elbow down, again, direction is important. Start with your elbow and you go down to your fingertips. If somebody looks at the washing that you're doing, that's what they should say. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly like going precisely downwards all the time. If it's going a little bit this way, a little bit that way, first you do your outer hand and then you again start from your elbow on your inner hand, all that would be okay. It's just generally when somebody looks at you, they're saying you're washing from top to bottom and you're covering this entire area. Your hand, the entire hand from the elbow down to the tips of the fingers. Again, question here. There's something that is subtly different for men and women in washing the hand. Does anybody know what that is? I'm trying to see if you guys have studied this ahkam really well before or not. Any of you sisters know there's something mustahab that's different for men versus women? Any guesses? Any thoughts, sisters? MashaAllah, two people put something on the chat. Yes, yes, exactly. Very good. Men wash from this is not something wajib. You don't have to do it, but it's mustahab for men to start washing from the outer elbow. So that would be like this part over here. Whereas for sisters from the, I don't know if you can even see it's blurry, but you get the idea. You start from the inner part of your elbow. Okay, one thing to keep in mind when we talk about this limit of what you have to wash, so for example, the width, the length, both for the hands, the face, it's necessary to ensure you've got that entire amount covered. So, what does that mean? That means you need to do a little bit extra to be comfortably sure that you've definitely got the part that was wajib. Okay, so if you need to do your elbow, that means you need to do a little bit above your elbow as well so that the elbow is definitely washed. Okay. Okay, guys. Inshallah. Any questions? Any comments? I'm gonna pause here. The next discussion I had in mind for you guys is about the barriers. So I'm gonna ask you some questions about barriers. But if anybody before that has questions of their own related to anything we've said, please feel free to ask. Okay. If not, I'm going to give you guys a minute to think about this. You can chat with each other, talk to each other. I want to hear what your thoughts are about makeup. Is makeup a problem in wudu? Gel. Let's say there's somebody with a lot of gel in their hair, a young man who's like spiked up his hair with tons of gel. Is that going to be a problem or not? What about pen marks? Or even like not just pen, marker, paint maybe, like different ink marks on your hand? Rings. What about wearing a ring? All these things. I want to hear one by one the answers. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think about this and then feel free to talk to each other, like I said, and then inshallah I will call on you or ask you to respond. I'll give you guys 2 minutes, inshallah, 3 minutes. There was one thing I forgot to mention when it came to washing, but for now let's hear from you guys about this. You guys want some more time or you ready to answer your thoughts on all of these? Okay, I'm gonna open the floor for volunteers, otherwise inshallah I'll call on you. Sister Atika, mashallah. To my knowledge, anything that mixes with the water of wudu can void it. Makeup would mix. Um, so That's a different discussion. That, yeah, if water becomes like no longer water, this is one of the conditions of wudu is that you have to actually be washing with water. But let's say sister Atika, let's say you know, you were using so much water, you were even like immersing your going back to the wudu irtimasi, you're immersing your face in like a river to do wudu. That would be valid. So then if you had makeup on before you did that, would that wudu then be okay? Okay, let's hear. Sister Hannah says makeup wouldn't be would be allowed, would be a barrier, hence wouldn't be allowed. Yeah, Sister Hannah has basically, mentioned the overall point here that we need to keep in mind. Certain makeup is waterproof, mascara. So Sister Mariam said that certain makeup is waterproof, meaning what? Meaning it's definitely a barrier. I think that's what she means. And yeah, anything that creates a masuma, thank you. Anything that creates a layer over your skin would be a barrier for the water to reach. Pen marks are not barriers, so they wouldn't void the wudu. Thank you, Sister Hania, Sister Hannah. Anything that prevents the water from reaching the skin is a barrier. I don't think pen would be a barrier. Yeah, okay. MashaAllah. So you guys are familiar. Generally, this is rings are okay if you move it and get under it. Exactly. Overall, as you guys have said correctly, what we're after is we have to make sure the water reaches the skin. Oh yeah, there's another point I'll come go back to as well about if you have like a beard or eyebrows. But overall, the whole point of the washing of wudu is to make the water reach that skin, the thing you're washing. If you now have a barrier, that's a problem, right? So normal makeup is gonna be a barrier. I was asking my sister actually before this class, and my sister told me that um, things like tinted moisturizer or powders might not be a barrier. Yeah, this was my sister. But anyways, overall, this is not something the marja is going to tell us. It's as you guys are saying, you kind of need to figure this out for yourself. That is it a barrier to water reaching or not? Things like lipstick or liquid eyeliner, they it would appear they definitely are. Again, that's up to you to kind of figure out, but it would appear that they definitely are a barrier. Even pen, similarly, it's not really like if it's just a pen mark on your skin, it's not really something that normally people would say. I don't mean like scientifically precision. No, normally you don't say that pen is like got mass. It's not something that is blocking water from reaching your skin. It's such a tiny, thin thing that's not even really considered, and so a pen mark would be okay. They use this word in Arabic, jirm, that does it have mass? Is it like an object that is stuck to your skin that is preventing water from reaching your skin? Even for cream and for gel, okay, there's a small, minimal amount of like natural oil or a light amount of cream that's gonna be okay. It doesn't block water. Even naturally, some people's skin is very oily. That's obviously gonna be okay. And you don't need to worry. Like some people, they fall into a lot of doubt and they put soap on their skin for a long time before they do wudu. I once have met a brother who was extremely like, suffering from doubts to do with taharat and najasat issues. These things, we don't need to fall into an extreme here. If it's a light amount of cream or gel, you can just assume it's reaching the skin and you're fine. But yeah, if you've put a lot of gel and you're sure you like, that amount should be a barrier, then that's an issue. Then you can't. Even the wiping, which we haven't come to yet, wiping needs to be on the hair or on the scalp, and so you can't have a barrier there basically. Sister Sarah, so if mascara is only on the eyelashes, is it okay to do wudu? I was reading actually exactly something from Ayatollah Khamenei, and he said no. He said that you need to make water reach your eyelashes as well. I'll double check if Ayatollah Sistani says anything about it, but I'm guessing it's probably the same. Okay. So if there is a barrier on your eyelashes, it must be removed, basically. But then it goes on to say, Sister Sarah, that when we talk about making water reach your eyelashes, we don't need to be so precise and concerned about doing it in a very careful way. Just as you normally wash your face, the amount of water that would go on your eyelashes is enough, but that there is some kind of washing of eyelashes there. Okay? Yeah, you can remind me, Sister Sarah, if you need me to. I'll try to see if I find anything on Ayatollah Sistani's website. I can search if there's anything on the Q&A. Okay, a couple of things that I forgot to mention, just going back to washing. One of them was that how many times do we wash? Okay, over here, washing once is what is wajib. Some maraji say that washing a second time is mustahab. Some say that washing a second time is okay. It's not mustahab, it's not makruh, it's jaiz. Okay, this is there in our notes as well. That basically to wash once, when we talk about the face or the right hand or the left hand, washing once is um, wajib, and the second time is either some maraji say mustahab, some maraji say allowed. But washing a third time is haram. Okay, so we have to be very careful. It's not part of wudu basically. Okay, so when I say haram, if you do it with the intention of it being wudu, that's something haram. Normally, maybe actually this is another point, but anyways, when we say it's not it's haram, what I mean is that it's not part of wudu. It's not something that the Sharia has told us that we have to wash a third time. This now becomes problematic because if you have washed your hands 3 times, then the water that you have is no longer water of wudu on your hands. And when you go on to do the masah, when you go on to wipe your head and your feet, that wipe is going to be invalid because you're supposed to wipe with the leftover water of wudu on your hands. And you washed 3 times, which was not part of the sharia. So you don't have really water of wudu on your hands. So this actually then invalidates your wudu altogether. Now the big question is, what constitutes one wash and what constitutes 2 washes? Okay, here I found Ayatollah Khamenei is very straightforward. He just says it goes back to your intention. Whatever your intention was, that you could wash your entire hand 2, 3 times, pour water on it, encompass the whole hand. But your intention was no, this is just my first wash that I'm doing. I'm just double checking that I did it properly, so I'm doing it again and again and again. But it's just one wash. Ayatollah Sistani, it's not so straightforward. I think it's a matter of there is an aspect with Ayatollah Sistani of actually like covering the entire area, and once you've covered it, you're done one wash. Okay, let me just give me a second. I'm gonna check if I can find. I didn't prepare it properly. I know it's on the Farsi Risala of Ayatollah Sistani. Yeah, I think I found it. I don't find it right now. It's actually, I'll look for it. But whatever the case is, with Ayatollah Sistani, it's not as easy as Ayatollah Khamenei. Ayatollah Khamenei is just very simple. It goes back to your intention. I think for Ayatollah Sistani, like I said, this aspect of covering your hand might be what's important, but I'll double check and I'll prepare that for next week, inshallah. Sister Hannah asked a question: what if a pen is waterproof, but it doesn't form a mass on your hand, or an oil pen? Like I said, Sister Hannah, I don't think that these things are going to be things that we go to our marja to ask him. It's more like, what do you think? Is it a barrier that's stopping water or not? And the normal explanations that we've been given is that pen is not a barrier. Now, if it's an oil pen, does that change things? I'm not sure. Okay. Uh, inshallah, if we have time, I'll go look again for this aspect of what is one wash for Ayatollah Sistani. It's actually quite important. We need to know that. So maybe when we're done, I'll quickly look for it. But for now, let's move on in the interest of time. Yeah, there was one other discussion about washing that if you have hair like a man who has a beard, or everybody has eyebrows, what's the deal with that? And the answer is if it's covering the skin, you don't need to worry. You just wash over that hair. Okay, so like somebody who has a bit of a beard like me, you just wash over it and that's fine. But if it's very thin, if you like somebody, like a 16, 17-year-old boy has like very thin hair on his face, In this case, no, he needs to make sure that the water is reaching, which naturally it would reach. I don't think this really is something that changes anything, but this is how the Maraja explained that if the hair is very thin, that you can see the skin underneath, in that case, you need to be sure that the water is reaching the skin. Okay. There's no questions. We'll move on to um, the last discussion that we have in wudu is to do with wiping. I actually put a picture in here, but because I had already shared my screen, let me just come out of this. 1 second. Go again. Change this. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So basically, the last part is to do with masah, wiping. Okay. So we have to wipe first of all our head and then our feet. When it comes to the head, there's no amount that's really wajib. As long as you wipe, oh, there is an area of your head though. Okay, so this is important. That imagine you can imagine your head as being divided into four parts. One part is on the side over here, one part is on the side over here, and one part is on the back. None of those three parts are what you wipe over. You wipe over the part that's right on the top. Okay, so the part of your head that is like kind of facing upwards, again, it's like a scientific precision is not necessary. It's just like a general idea that there's four parts to my head, and the part that's on the top is the part I need to wipe. Within that part, okay, so here there's a, oh, there was a picture. I didn't put it. Inshallah, maybe next time I'll get a picture. Anyways, it's obvious, right? The part that's on the top, on that part, any amount of a wipe is okay. In terms of the length, in terms of the width, in terms of the direction, there's nothing. As long as it's like a wipe of some sort, we're okay. Okay. Um, yeah. But there is a mustahab amount that is basically the width of three fingers and the length of one entire finger. That is what is mustahab. Ihtiyat mustahab. Okay. That was for the head. For the feet, basically, as you can see, oh, there's some messages in the chat. Can one use fingertips to wipe the head? Yeah, definitely. You can use fingertips to wipe the head. That's not a problem. In theory, could you wipe sideways across your head if direction does not matter? I'm pretty sure. Let me just 1 second. I was reading multiple books. 1 second, guys. I have Ayatollah Sistani's book in front of me. He must have something here about this. But I didn't see anything about the direction. I do have a vague memory of it being mentioned somewhere. Hmm. Yeah, okay. So Ayatollah Sistani says it's ihtiyat mustahab that you wipe from the top downwards. Okay? Um, yeah. But basically, as we just said, it's ihtiyat mustahab. So no, overall, there's no required wajib rule in terms of direction or amount. So Sister Iman, your question, yeah, you could wipe sideways across your head. That would be no problem. Okay? So that was with regards to the head. We'll come back to maybe some points about your hair, but the next thing is your feet. Your feet, you have to wipe from your toes up to the what? To the ankle is what Ayatollah Khamenei and Ayatollah Sistani both say. If you look at the notes that I sent, don't be surprised over there. It says to the bump in the middle of your foot. And that was the opinion of Marhum Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah alayh. And so, there's differences of opinions that do you need to start at the toes and just go up to, if you look at this picture on the slides, you can see two arrows or three arrows. One arrow is the tip of the toes where you start. One arrow is your ankle, which Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei say you need to go up to there, and one arrow is in the middle of the foot. That was Imam Khomeini's opinion, that there is this bump on the foot, you just need to go up to there, and you're fine. Okay? Again, when it comes to width, there's no wajib requirement. Meaning what? Meaning even just one finger's width. So you take one finger and you wipe like one toe, starting with your middle toe down to your ankle. That's enough. Okay. For the length, though, as we just said, Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei say up until the ankle, to the end of the top of your foot, and Imam said till the bump of in the middle. It's mustahab again to like encompass the entire foot with your whole hand. You try to cover your whole foot, but that's just mustahab. Ihtiyatan mustahab, you don't need to. Okay. Sister Hannah asked a question that I was going to come back to. So yeah, now I think we're basically done. So let me come back to it. That on the head, do we need to reach the scalp or not? Basically, if the hair is hair that is on that part of the head normally, right? Like let's say my head, I don't have long hair, men, right? Then there's no problem. I can just wipe over the hair. But if it is hair that, is such that if it were to be combed down, it would fall on another part of your head or your face, or it's even hair from another part of your head or that's kind of on top of your head right now, in these cases, yeah, you should try to somehow reach the roots of the hair that's really on the top of your head and do masah over those hair roots that are there. Okay? I think I explained it correctly. I'll just double check. I have a book of Ayatollah Khamenei's in front of me that talks about this. Mm, yeah, it says something like this. Somebody whose hair is so long that if they were to comb it, it would come onto their face or onto another part of their head. They must, as I just said, they must basically wipe the roots of their hair. Okay, or close to the roots at least, like the part that is originally on the top of their head. Or they could even somehow part their hair and do masa on the scalp directly. Yes, Sister Hannah?
Sorry, just a clarification for this same ruling because I've read it before and I'm just confused. So, let's say if someone has longer hair in general, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not like it's another part of their hair that's on the like top of the head where the masa has to be done. It's just like combed back. Would you still not be allowed to do the masa on that part of the hair? Like, does it still have to be parted?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I didn't see that mentioned, but it does make sense to me what you're saying. That like you're doing it over here that is normally like it's so what we just read, Sister Hannah said that if the hair is hair that if you comb it, it would fall down onto another part of your head or your face. Then you shouldn't do mas on that. Then you should go to the root. So what you're saying is not that. You're saying that no, it's hair that, is normally there on top of your head only. So that should be fine.
Yeah, sorry. So, because when I read that ruling, I was a little confused. Like, I thought it was saying that in general, if your hair is just long, because if you technically comb it from the root, the same hair that kind of grows out. I'm finding it hard to explain, but it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
means
yeah.
like, because when you mention, oh, hair that's normally there,
Mm-hmm.
it's like just the roots of the hair, but it's kind of covering the scalp, but the rest of the hair is long. I don't know if it makes sense. Sorry.
No, I think I understand what your question is, and I think you're okay. But
Okay.
I'll try to double check. So you're basically saying that, normally if your hair is going back, you're still doing muss over hair that would, that like, is on top of your head. It's not hair that would have fallen onto another part of your head normally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's fine. Okay.
Thank
Inshallah,
you.
this is something I can ask. Even I had the question about one wash for Ayatollah Sistani. If I don't find that right now, I'll also look into these. Inshallah, these are things that I can easily look into and get back to you guys. Sister Iman asked a question, would you define another part of your head in terms of the four parts? Yeah, exactly. Exactly the definition. That if it's hair that if you comb it, it now rests on your left side of your head, then you can't do muss on that. Even if that hair right now is on top of your head, you shouldn't do muss on that. You need to try to get to the roots of those hair. Sister Zahra asked a question, how dry? Okay, this is another point that I didn't mention. Good point. Thank you for reminding me. Basically, the parts that you wash in wudu, they don't need to be dry because you are washing. Even if they were already wet, it doesn't matter. You're making it wet again, right? So that's for sure. When it comes to the parts that are being wiped, your head and your feet, if they're a little bit moist, such that the masah is still leaving an effect, then that's okay. But if they're really wet, then no, you can't do. You have to dry them first. Yeah, sometimes when I'm doing wudu, I have a washroom in my house with a really small sink. So as I'm washing my face and hands, water splashes onto my feet. So before I do muss of my feet, I just rub the feet on like my pants to dry it. So by the time I do muss, I'm confident that even if it's not totally dry, it's generally dry, and I can do muss.
Thank you, Sheikhna. That's very clear. I had a follow-up question. It had to do with the
Mm-hmm.
parting of the hair.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, we heard that the hair had to be, at least for females, split in half in order to do wudu. But sometimes a female might have like a side part, for example. When she is doing wudu, given that that's not the natural, say, parting of her hair, is she
Mm-hmm.
supposed to part the hair in the middle in order to do wudu?
It's like what I was just saying with Sister Hana. So the ahkam that I was reading were worded that like if the hair you're doing masah over is such that it would normally fall onto another part of your head, you can't do masah on that. Then you should go to the roots of the hair.
Okay.
But now her question was good, so I'll just double check. But Sister Hannah's question maybe is similar to what you're saying, that what if it's hair that's long, but the part that you're doing muss on is normally sitting on the top of your head. So you should be okay, I think, in that case. You can just do muss over that hair. Okay. Okay, guys. Any questions? Oh yeah, one or two other important points. Um, A ring, by the way, yeah, as I think one of the sisters said, you can just kind of move a ring around, and as if the water reaches under, you're fine. People are used to taking off their rings, that's fine as well, but you don't have to take your ring off. For tayammum, you do need to take your ring off, okay? Because in tayammum, you're just hitting the ground in one go, you can't have any barrier. But in wudu, you're just trying to make water reach, so that's going to be fine. Yes, Sister Hannah?
Sorry, I just want to clarify for the pouring of water on the face and arms. Does it have to be like? Well, I'll ask specifically for just arms. Does it have to be like the water has to be poured from the elbow, or just the wiping has to kind of be from the elbow to the fingers? Like not direction wise. Like direction, I understand is the one direction, but
Right.
recently I heard somewhere where like let's say I can't just pour from the middle of my arm and then just wipe after. I hope that made sense.
So the important thing is that when you're washing, you need to be washing from the elbow downwards. So now you could be kind of throwing water on your hand, pouring water on your hand, but that's not with the niyat of doing the wash of wudu yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you start to wipe that water like I'm saying wipe, but here we're doing the washing, not must. As you start to wipe that water down, now you're making the niyyah that this is my act of wudu. That's fine. That's gonna be
So,
okay.
so is it okay if let's say I don't necessarily? I'm just asking in theory, just to
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, right.
Um, like let's say I kind of am going in the downward direction, but my elbow is still dry and my fingers are wet already. Like I'm wiping that way. Like I'm getting there, but the
Mm,
direction is still technically top to bottom. I'm just wondering.
I'm pretty sure that should be fine. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that should be. Let me again ask somebody, but it's overall, like I said, it's not this detailed amount of precision is not necessary. It's just overall, somebody looks at you, they should say you're washing from top down, and the area is encompassing the elbow to the fingertips.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. One or two other points. Okay, something to keep in mind that can happen that's potentially problematic is when you're doing masah of your head, let's say you take your hand too far forward and now you like, wipe onto your face. This is now a problem because your right hand now has water of your face, whereas you're supposed to. So the problem is what? Problem is when you go to do masah of your feet, you're supposed to be doing masah with the leftover water from washing your hands, not mixing it with water that, wetness on your face. Unless you have to, we'll come to another situation, but normally you're not allowed to do that. So now let's say by mistake you did that where you took your right hand when you're doing mas of your head so far forward that you got it mixed with water of your face. Definitely for Ayatollah Sistani, I'm pretty sure even Ayatollah Khamenei, there's no problem if you use your left hand to do masah of both your feet. So you just to be careful in that situation, don't use or the other thing that would normally happen, it would be just the tips of your fingers that got mixed with this water, right? So you could do mas with your palm on your feet and you'd be okay. But overall, this idea of getting other wetness is an issue. Another time this might come up is if you're closing the tap. Let's say you're closing the tap before you're doing must. That's good. You don't want to waste water. But now you want to be careful that you don't get new wetness on your hand that is not wetness of wudu because you still need to do mash. And when you're doing the mash, you can't use the wetness of anything else. Does the head wiping have to be up to the hairline specifically, Sister Mariam? No. We said there's like no minimum amount. It's just even like a tiny little bit on the middle of your head is going to be okay. Okay. I think that was it. If you guys have any other questions, one thing I could do right now is I could start searching for the answers to some of these things, but I think that might, yeah, anyways, we've come to the end of time. If you guys have any other questions, otherwise we can leave it at that, I guess. I have a few questions, inshallah, that I'll take away and try to get answered. And inshallah, we can keep going with wudu next week. Any last questions?
I
Do
have
the
one.
feet Sorry, one
Sorry.
second. There's one question in the chat. Do the feet have to be wiped separately? It's a good question. Ayatollah Sistani definitely says you can do them at the same time. It is a difference. So in the notes, I indicated that this is something that Maraji have different opinions on. I should be able to find Ayatollah Khamenei's right now if anybody's interested, but definitely Ayatollah Sistani lets you do them both at the same time. So you with your right hand you can wipe your right foot, and with your left hand you can wipe your left foot exactly at the same time. Mm, yeah. I think Ayatollah Khamenei says that it needs to be done first, because I'm reading something where it says first. Oh no. I'll get back to you guys about Ayatollah Khamenei, but Ayatollah Sistani definitely says you can wipe them at the same time. Sorry, somebody else had a question. They had started asking.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the mixing of the water. So when you're doing the head and it does, let's say, accidentally touch the face, is the head wipe like still valid? And then when you do
Yeah,
the
yeah,
feet, just don't use the same water?
yeah,
Like you don't use the.
exactly.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, yeah, so I'm looking at Ayatollah Khamenei's book, and it seems very clear to me that you need to do the right foot before the left foot. So when it comes to the tartib of wudu, there's nothing about being able to do the feet at the same time. So it says like the fifth step is wipe your right foot, and the sixth step is wipe your left foot. Okay. Okay, guys. Any last questions? Otherwise, we can leave it at that. Yes, Sister Mariam?
Sanam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what would be the best way to do wudu, in terms of not wasting water? I know you said like if you want to turn off the tap, before wiping, you just have to make sure that you're not touching new water, right? But what about before that, like when you're doing the washing of the arms and the
Yeah, yeah.
face, can you like turn on, turn off the tap or?
Definitely you can. Definitely. You just need to, yeah. So why not? You can put water in your right hand and then right away turn off the tap and then use that water to wash your left hand or, to
Yeah.
wash your face. So you can make it very, very minimal. I'll share a story with you guys next week, inshallah, about Imam Khomeini and how little water he used to use for wudu. So, and yeah, definitely.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay, guys, take care. Oh, one more message in the chat. Oh, okay. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. في أمان الله, sisters.